Hi, uh, good evening, everybody. I know this is the last session, so uh, hope this will be, I think the discussions will be interesting and insightful, and people will take away something from this. The topic of the session, as Akash announced, is scaling up financing for energy efficient product using independent measurement and verification. And this is an important topic in the light of many things that are happening in the country: codes and standards, ESCOs, labs-based certification in terms of product certification. And this is all in the context of buildings. We know that there are lots of buildings that are still to be built in India. HVAC is consuming a lot of energy consumption in those buildings. There have been several sessions focused on cooling. And we are also looking at that many times there is a gap between design intent and the actual performance. So what we are trying to do here is that we will explore the needs and options for policy level incentives to help achieve these targets, and the role different stakeholders, including third-party certification, can play in supporting these policy measures to ensure superior performance of HVAC system. And then the second point is the role of third-party certification in creating awareness regarding efficient airside management in the HVAC industry. What I'll do is that I'll start with some high-level questions before I direct my questions to our esteemed panelists. And there are three questions, high-level common questions, that I am posing to set the context. So the first issue is that there is a wide gap between design intent and actual performance that plagues the building sector globally. And this issue becomes even more acute while validating the performance of the HVAC system in general and airside components in particular. Any comments on the importance of third-party certifications in ensuring superior building performance and ushering in a net zero energy building revolution? So that's my first question. The second question is that what are the key challenges that third-party certifications have in the Indian HVAC industry, and how can they help boost the need for more efficient HVAC appliances, especially AHUs, and help improve its operational performance? And the third question is that how third-party certification and verification can cater for airside load management in the buildings to reduce the building cooling, heating load, and deliver energy savings. So Akash has already mentioned, I think if we have Jyotirmay Mathur, Dr. Jyotirmay Mathur, Dr. Vishal Garg, Mr. P.K. Goyal, and Mr. Devraj Singh as the four panelists here. And I'm going to start with Jyotirmay, who is a personal friend, and we have worked together for, I think, more than 15, 16 years in this sector now. And Jyotirmay, from your vantage point, I'm just, maybe you can touch upon some of the common questions. But the first question is that how can third-party certification play an essential role in achieving superior building performance, or like net zero energy building performance? And what is required to create awareness among the key stakeholders of the net zero building regarding third-party certifications? Over to you.
Thank you, Satish, for this question. So I directly come to the third-party certification part, and if we look at what is happening internationally and what should ideally happen, I'll break this third-party certification in three segments. First one is, of course, what is most popular and most widely known is product certification. So we have various products and we have certifications. What we require for certification of products is a standard on the basis of which the certification is done. A standard, and definitely a test lab where the product is standard. So that's a very common cycle of having a certification in place. So we definitely need certification, third-party certification of products. Otherwise, the reliability of performance of a product for a common man would only be declared by the manufacturer, and he has no choice but to believe what the manufacturer is declaring. So the benefit of having third-party certification of products is that a common person can rely that yes, this is tested at a third party, which is a neutral place, which is definitely not governed by the manufacturer, but is also not governed by the users. That is product certification. The important part in this is, especially in India, because we have a different kind of climate as compared to the Western world, most of the standards that we are having in practice in India, they are coming from the West. So we should kind of adapt those standards as per the Indian conditions and Indian practices. If we find that there is no reason for any change, we should adopt them. So what BIS does is, if there is an ISO standard, the ISO standard is adopted. If there is no requirement for a modification, but if there is a requirement, there is an annexure, country-specific annexure that is brought with the ISO standard, and then it is given an IS standard number and becomes an IS standard. If the requirements are significantly different, then there is a need to develop our own standard, and that is also kind of a contribution to Atmanirbhar Bharat. So if we really want Indian products as per Indian market conditions, Indian climatic conditions, and if we see that there is a significant difference between the Indian conditions as compared to the international prevailing conditions and the standards which are in practice, we need to develop our own standards. This part is quite missing in India because we, as of now, we have BIS as the only agency for development of standards. We do not have an accredited third-party standard development organization. Okay, so we also need to develop that ecosystem. If we have multiple organizations developing standards who are accredited, who are transparent, whose processes are audited, then this third-party product certification can flourish. The test lab economics also needs to be seen when we are talking about this. The test lab economics depends upon the market demand. So third-party test labs which are there, their economics also needs to be seen. So we, through codes, through standards, through rulings, through regulations, we need to create a market demand for such certifications. So that is as far as the products are concerned. The second part in third-party certification is professional certification, and the third part is building performance certification. When I talk about professional certification, it is design certification, means design professionals who are certified for their and their competences certified, and the people, the blue-collar people who are there on the site, who are doing the installation, their competence is also certified. So we need two levels of professional certification to be in place, and that is again can be third party. Building performance, whether it comes to building commissioning level or the continued performance monitoring level, we need to again have a third party certification, because a third party is likely to do the due diligence in a much better way and much transparent way as compared to the building owner himself or the designer himself. Both would have their own interest, and therefore a third-party certification is there. So the three segments need to be addressed separately. Then we would be kind of moving towards the right direction, in my opinion.
Thanks a lot, Jyotirmay. I think it's a very good point that you made, that product-level certification, even though they are important, they need to be coordinated with professional certification as well as building-level certification. And what is the role of the government and what is the role of third-party independent organizations, as we see internationally, that even international standards or global standards sometimes are developed with third-party this thing. So perhaps I'm going to come to Mr. P.K. Goyal now and ask him, you have worked in the HVAC sector for the longest periods of time.
45 years.
So the first question is that how can third-party certification, this is slightly, I think, similar to my third common question, play a role in bridging this gap of actual performance, or I think versus claimed, or what is based on simulation or design intent, what we say for HVAC appliances and system. And maybe limit your intervention to about 3 to 4 minutes so that we can actually go around the room pretty quickly.
Right. So let's come to the first part of it, which is intended performance, or where do we want to pitch the building. And a lot of work has been done in the previous years over here, and it's mainly been done on the basis of simulation. Very rightly, some of the colleges in India took the lead in teaching students simulation, and I think in India today, thanks to those colleges, we have a lot of professionals who even during the design stage can work and tell you what the intended performance is. And that's a great job done. Some of the people are on this stage itself. The second part comes during the execution of it. And we have had number of forums where we have said that somehow when it comes to the finished buildings and the building being occupied by people who were to occupy it, at the same time the energy managers and other people, they find a gap that we were supposed to get it to this kilowatt hour consumption per square meter per year, but either we are not getting there or the indoor air quality is not really what we desired. The fresh air is not really working properly, and the building is not really responding to changes of temperature from morning to evening or summer to winter. You know, these are the things that people want. And at that point of time, you start looking at various things as to where things can be improved or where things went wrong. And one of the first things that you need is you should have some basic reliable equipment working in your organization or in your building, because if you don't even have a reliable or equipment in terms of energy efficiency in your building, then how do you proceed? Do you look at the system or do you look at the equipment? So that's where the equipment certification comes in place. And especially in place like India, where we are trying to get to net zero, so I'm to say, so important it is for us because we are still to build so much of our infrastructure, we need to get this right. The second and third part, which Dr. Jyotirmay mentioned, I'm to say the people certification. It's a long-term process, but we need to get it one way or the other. And whole building certification, there are only few places in the world like New York and other places where star ratings, star-rated buildings have, you know, Energy Star-rated buildings have started coming up. Very recently, some of the other cities in the US also announced that you need to abide by these particular standards. It will take time in India to have those certifications properly vetted in place. I'm going to say you could have certifications based on designs, you know, as it is being done today. And 95% of the people, including, I'm sure, a lot of people in this hall would probably go for the thing that, oh, that's a gold building. Yeah, that's a gold building in terms of design terms and not a certified Energy Star building. So I think that's my answer to what you asked for.
Okay.
And that's how certification can help.
Thank you, Prabhatji, for the points that you made. I would say that as far as I think the green building rating, which is also kind of a labeling system for new construction, is already there. We have B star labeling for buildings. I think it's being tried out. I think it hasn't received the traction that it should. But if you look at neighbors, if you look at European Building Performance Directive, the European labeling system, or the Energy Star labeling system, so in the existing buildings, there are examples, I would say, that exist in the, and perhaps our focus has a lot been on the new construction, but more and more focus is required on the existing building side as well. So those we will probably start to see, and we are talking about superior building performance, so that will get linked to this. Perhaps I can move to my friend Vishal. Vishal, you have been working in the building energy efficiency space for a long time. The HVAC systems that we are talking about, one part is the energy consumption, right? But the other and equally important part is the indoor air quality. And these two things are very, very closely connected. So while we are talking about these certification systems for for improving performance from an energy standpoint, how significant do you think efficient air handling, because we are focusing a little bit on the air side of things, is in terms of maintaining the IAQ of the building? And we can talk about thermal comfort or you can talk about humidity, but, and how can third-party certification there play an important role in embarking on this journey?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Satish. So, the vents are the final thing that, as a user, we see from the air conditioning. For us, this is the air conditioning, right? So, this is where we are getting the cold air in case of summers. So, during COVID was the time then, at that time, people started asking questions about the recirculation of the air, about the spread of the virus, about the fresh air, and so many things. Otherwise, most of the common people were ignorant or not even interested in what goes behind this. So, the indoor air quality has several aspects. It is not just temperature and humidity. We can even talk about operative temperature. We need to talk about fresh air, how much is the CO2 level as an indicator that how fresh is the air. And now when we are talking about high-grade filtration, so that the viruses, bacteria and other pollutants can also be removed. We are also very aware of PM 2.5 nowadays. So I think it is very important that we just do not focus only on energy efficiency. First focus on delivering the right air quality, and while delivering it, ensuring efficiency. Now when we are having air conditioning systems, mostly it is just the temperature that is there being measured in the thermostat, and that controls the whole thing. So we need to put these sensors to measure the other parameters and have a control which ensures the air quality and then also ensures the maximum possible efficiency with that air quality. Now that brings the question of certification. Now generally when we are doing certification, we do product certification and we say, okay, this is the efficiency at the peak load or at whatever operating condition. In case of air handling units, it is the fan that is being certified. I think we have to move ahead and we have to go for operational certification, that during the operations, did the control algorithm work properly? Did the dampers and all the moving parts work properly and delivered the desired IAQ as well as efficiency? So that is where I think we need to move and not just move for, so it's not that you collect 10 certified products and put them together, they will work the way we desire them to work. There's something beyond that. And another important thing I would like to extend what Jyotirmay said, that even after having the best of the products, best of the certification, finally it is in the hands of the operator that we get the desired performance. So if the operator is not trained, operator doesn't know how the whole thing has been designed and how it should be run, then the whole concept will not work. So equally important is, as you said, trained operators who know how it works, how the things work, and they manage the system.
Thank you. Thank you, Vishal. I think the important points there in terms of the indoor indoor air quality. Should we be certifying installed building level components? I can, as soon as you mentioned, I can start to see the complexity and the scale of that, because we don't even have like good product level, new product level certification. So we are talking at a different level, but the role of people, I think, in ensuring that the product works the way they are supposed to work is going to be very, very important. Devraj Singh ji, you represent the manufacturing community, very important in terms of how these products are manufactured in factories, assembled, then tested, and before they are installed on site. And India is showing ambition to export and compete with other countries on some of these things. So the question for you is that we have a pretty successful, I would say, production-linked incentive scheme that has been launched by Government of India. And how do you see the role of these kind of certifications working in tandem with PLI schemes to help manufacturers improve the quality, overall quality, and not just in domestic markets, but probably also in the international markets?
Yes, thank you, Satish. So when we are discussing about the quality and certification, if it is certified.
Mic closer, close.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, sorry. Thanks, Marcus. So the certification gives confidence to the buyer that yes, the quality what they are committing is going to be delivered. So I am saying producing the component in India for HVAC, not only component but energy efficient component production in India is very much required. If we see any commercial building, the energy performance indicator says 200 to 400 kilowatt hour per square meter per year is the trend. So energy consumption is highest for HVAC, and if we want to address that, we have to have a energy efficient HVAC component. If it is promoted by PLI, then a conscious planning and implementation of energy efficient product will definitely bring the energy consumption down by almost 40%. A major game changer can be a PLI scheme for the HVAC manufacturers aligned in tandem with the certification body. So that gives confidence to the buyer, yes, it is going to happen this. You also said for the export market, so when we are talking to the customers outside the border, they are very much looking for the certifications if it is there. If products are not certified, they have their own doubts whether it is going to be going to deliver what they are saying, or there will be some kind of delta. So I believe certification is the key if we really want to increase the export and increase the production of the equipment in India.
Okay, thank you. I think also maybe you would have encountered this, but my sense is that many of the manufacturers not only have to meet domestic, I think, certifications, but also international certifications. Middle Eastern market may say that, hey, I want a CE certification. Your product must comply with that international standard before we will allow that to be imported, or an ANSI standard which has a much more sort of like gravitas and is much more accepted widely. So maybe I think I'm just coming up with a counterpoint that do you think just domestic certification will help, or you will run into issues of like international body certifications that manufacturers will have to comply?
Yes, so when we are talking for the international market, I will start with Europe. Europe is having, say for example, 80% of the product certified going into the market. While in India, that was not the case even 10 years back. But now consultants have started asking certified product. So that is there. But when we want to increase the production in India, that is kind of make in India, and want to push export, it has to be international certifications for the Indian manufacturing facility, which is definitely going to support. So I will say it should be international certification, valid not only for India, but our world.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I think in the first round, we just have heard from everybody in terms of what the third-party certification may mean, and not just for product certification, but even for people certification or building level certification, because this is a broad topic. What I would do in the second round perhaps is bring it back to two elements. We may want to just dive into the air side or the ventilation side of things, because that's something that we would like to explore. And also, Vishal was mentioning that we are financing in the topic of this discussion. So perhaps if you folks can think about linking that, how can this third-party certification actually help in maybe attracting alternative financing for ESCO markets or some other things? Because I think if you are thinking of scaling of financing based on performance, then there has to be some unlocking of the financing mechanisms, whether we are looking at lead building certification or Griha whatever, or whether we are looking for ESCO market. So I will start with Prabhat ji, and you have worked internationally as well. And so can you share some examples from your international experience that have led to this kind of a performance-based HVAC design system certification, and if that has helped expand the market by attracting more financing into it?
So, couple of things that I will come to on this particular point is that right across the world, something called energy performance contracting is becoming more relevant day by day. Companies like Dalkia and others have done it for years together, and they would take a certified equipment and then after that give a performance guarantee for the building to have energy performance, and now they are clear on both sides. If it doesn't work, they go back to the certifier or to the manufacturer that, look guys, you got to tell me what went wrong, that with your equipment I could not meet this particular number, and they write checks. If they don't meet the certified performance, whatever is the remaining part of it, there is no argument. They first write the check and then go ahead with anything else. And certified performance in terms of financing, look at it. I mean to say, unless a product bears that certification, how does a banker come and finance it? You are making 10,000 air coolers, very simple air coolers in a factory. They are good quality. He goes to the banker and says, give me finance against my product. Banker says, tomorrow if you close your factory, how do I go and dispose of this product? Who has certified your product? So financing becomes very, very simple once your product is certified. The other thing you need to learn from the electronics industry, where standardization and financing are so important that they come out with a product, they design a product, and they need to come out into the market at the shortest possible this thing. And over there, again, certification plays a very, very important role. And that is how financing comes, because the financiers now have a trust in the product. Anything happens, it is not only in terms of money from the end customers, but in case something happens in between to this certified company, then they know how to get about disposing the product.
Okay.
I think that will be my take on it.
Okay. All right. Coming back to perhaps Vishal. Vishal, you are known as a person who understands the instrumentation and measurement, and people have called you walking sensor as well. So I think the question that I have is that I'm going beyond, I think, domestic, but I'm looking at that. How does measurement, instrumentation, verification actually helps in products complying with international standards and protocols as well? And how can India ensure outstanding quality? Because I think that's what gives confidence to the industry in certifying these third-party certifiers, I think, and whether that's product testing or like people testing. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, thank you. So I think I'll concur with what Devraj said. If there is no need for a local certificate or standard or protocol to be developed, unless the local requirements dictate, it's better to follow the international. And it is not just the benefit that we will have access to products from all over the world, but we have a possibility of exporting because we are following those standards and we can also export. So it's good to have a global standardization. Otherwise, local standardization would incur more cost for global players, and then it only increases the cost for us. Now the question is, what standard? Now there are so many things to be considered as soon as you talk about any sensor and it is connected. First, you have to talk about interoperability. So whether my sensor, my actuator, my controller, whatever I have, is it having interoperability or I am getting locked? Then we are talking about security. Is the whole system secure or somebody can hack into that? Then we are talking about privacy. So if there is a motion sensor in my office and my air side is connected to that, then my privacy is at, it can be exposed. People know when I am in my office, when I am not in my office, if that data can be captured. Now, as soon as we talk about sensors, we talk about accuracy, we talk about calibration. It's fine, we can get accurate sensors, we can get them factory calibrated, but the issue is, the biggest challenge is, how do we know that the sensor has drifted? Because once you put it in the building, you might have a routine checkup after 6 months or 1 year. In between, if anything happens, whether it's a temperature sensor, whether it's a position sensor or any other sensor, we have no way of finding out. So there are also standards now which talk about fault detection and diagnostics. So if the products that we are using in the building comply to those standards, then it will be possible to detect if there is any fault in the device and take action well in time before it is too late. So I think these are the factors that we should keep in mind when we are talking about standardization. Then finally, when we talk about performance, what is the benchmark and what is the protocol to establish the performance? So like you are a big promoter of IP/MVP protocol, right? So protocols like those which can tell you what is the expected performance of the system and how is it performing in the real time, and we can find out if there is a deviation. So the option, I guess it is option B, where we talk about the simulation approach, where we have a real-time simulation happening, and then we are using the real-time measurements. Now besides this, these are the real sensors, the real measurements. Nowadays, things are going for virtual sensors. So like say for example, if I want to measure the operative temperature at a particular location, I can't put a sensor there. I just can get air temperature at the most. That also, at that spot I can't do. I can't put a sensor there. So now the advancements are there by which we can find out a particular parameter at a given place virtually using indirect measurements or simulations, and then use that for the control or for any other process. So for that, do we have a protocol? Do we have a system which says that this is the right way of finding out the value of virtual sensor? So we need a lot of things, a lot of standardization is required. Good that we are talking about it. Let us see what standards exist, don't reinvent the wheel, and try to develop those standards where we don't have existing standards. Thank you.
So I'll perhaps come to Devraj Singh ji last. I want to ask him some questions, but maybe Jyotirmay, just back to you in terms of if you are looking at integrating the airside sort of like devices into a larger building management system, and if you are looking to see, I think, what kind of standard protocols need to be there so that they can talk to each other. In the previous sessions, people were talking about some of these things. So how do you think, again, that certification of airside components is actually allow them to plug into some of the other building management systems and get the data that a user is actually interested in a more reliable manner? And whether you feel that that is going to be just, I think, I mean, the maybe a related question is that, do you think there is going to be more money available to actually make these operability easier in the future, knowing, I think, how the building construction industry operates?
I'm happy, Satish, that you touched the air side, which is often the neglected side of our air HVAC system. If you ask 10 persons, how good or bad your air conditioning system is, he will answer that question based upon what is the COP of his chiller, usually. Seldom you would find the answer coming from how nicely the air side of the system is designed and how much is the efficiency in the air side. And when I talk about air side, I have several components. We just kind of normally don't realize how important these components can be and how many of these components can be. I can start from basically the basic AHU, but besides the basic AHU, I can have a heat recovery wheel because a significant amount of heat can be recovered, especially if the occupancy density is high and if the ambient condition is harsh. So, and it can downsize your air conditioning system quite significantly. So the heat recovery wheel, again, is, to the best of my knowledge, the use is not very common in India. There are buildings where it is being used, but has it been sized properly? Has it been installed properly? Is it being controlled properly? Especially when it comes in conjunction with an economizer. How to operate a combination of an economizer and a heat recovery wheel, I've hardly found a designer answering this question properly. So again, I come back to what I said earlier. Because the air side is neglected, because the AHU or the heat recovery wheel or the VAV box or the damper control or the demand-based ventilation or the ducting design itself. Ducting design is very important as far as the energy efficiency control is concerned. I can have all the high efficiency of my chiller, all the high efficiency pumping of my chilled water spoiled if I don't distribute my air nicely and if I don't collect the return air very nicely and recover the cooling effect from that very nicely. So, and that is the reason why if I talk about the chiller IKW, I am somewhere around 0.5, 0.6, whereas the system IKW, when I'm talking about, I am at around 0.91, maybe 1.1, around that. Means this itself, these numbers themselves say the importance of air side is not less than the importance of my chiller side. Ironically, there are very less standards available. There are very less certified products available in India. Internationally, yes, there are. Devraji said this, yes. But fact is that many of the manufacturers of these components in India have to send their products to Europe for getting them tested, and it's a phenomenal cost. And that is why the demand of certified products is not rising. Again, the question comes, do we have a benchmark for the air side? We have benchmarks for the building, EPI for the building is there, fine. We have system benchmark also. But unless we break down that number to subsystem level and have a separate benchmark for my air side, okay, that efficiency demand of the air side will not come. Once the efficiency demand of the air side comes, the demand for certified designers and installers would come. Once the demand for certified installers and designers come, the certified designers know what properties to be asked, what performance parameters to be asked from the manufacturers, and those details cannot come without third-party certification. So it's an integrated approach. We have a subsystem level breakup of benchmarks. And then chase those benchmarks would automatically create a demand for building performance monitoring, continuous monitoring, what Vishal said, a performance, competent designer, competent installer, and a third-party certification of products. So it's an integrated system.
Thank you, Jyotirmay. I think the point that you are making in terms of an integrated approach and just the fact that system level efficiency could be double the chiller efficiency is a very clear indicator that we should have more focus and more emphasis on air side. Devraj Singh ji, you touched upon some of the things. Here are some two very simple questions. If you get your product complying with international certification, Prabhat ji mentioned, is your financing of the next assembly line or the factory that you are setting, does that become easier? That's more from getting the capital and getting the financing to expand your business. And then the second piece is that what kind of an edge you get when you get your product certified internationally, even from international lab. Do you think there is a demand for those kind of products, or it just become a prohibitive external cost that most of the manufacturers, they say that perhaps I think it's not worth doing it. So I'm again going back to this issue of value versus financing and the capacity for people to pay and value, I think why I think the performance is such an important component.
Thanks. So in India, if we see the trend is changing, what we are seeing in the market, the trend is changing. This was not the case few years back when the certification, third-party certification was mandatory. But if we have to work on a kind of a good project, the certifications are now mandatory. Not everywhere, but the trend is increasing.
Okay.
This is in India. When we are going to export market, mainly in even Asia, for any prestigious project, if we are working, then they are looking not only for third-party certification, but many other additional kind of things like ESG. So the things are changing. So it is important if we want to grow the business in India going forward and really want to export, we have to have third-party certifications. Third-party certifications are giving kind of confidence in the eyes of customers because they basically establish a purpose and common set of criteria for the rating of the product. This is common for everybody, and the product can be evaluated against those criteria. And then, this is, I will say, the great way to distinguish the product that meets the standards set by the international or domestic agencies, organizations, and they are well renowned. So that is basically going to distinguish. Third thing I will say, the product and system certification is not only good for the supplier, but for the customers as well, because they both can easily identify and distinguish, okay, what is the difference in certified product versus the product which is not certified, or the system I will say not certified. This gives us a kind of seal of approval, which offering high level of confidence in the eyes of the customers when they are taking the decision for buying any equipment. And then since the third-party certification do not carry any kind of conflict of interest, so they build the kind of confidence between the customer and the supplier. So that is how it also becomes important. And then they resonate with third-party certification, because the certification is not a kind of declaration for the product or systems, but customer can measure. The beauty is customer can measure the benefit versus the cost they are going to spend. So that way I believe, yes, if we want to finance our business, if we do not have that product which is going to grow in the market, is not going to work. So we should go for certifications, third-party certifications, and then invest in the business.
Okay, thank you very much. In the interest of time, maybe I'll come back with a rapid fire round for 30-second closing remarks. So you guys can think about like what closing remarks you want to give. But just let's go to the audience and see that are there any questions from the audience on this topic that we are discussing here? So please. Mic to the gentleman. Can we have a mic here? And maybe just a brief introduction and ask a question, okay? And to whom you are directing the question. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. I am basically from the background of sustainable cooling and energy savings, basically. So my question basically goes out to all the panelists regarding certification and setting of standards. For example, if there is a technology that is being imported from outside India and that needs to be implemented here, all right, how would one, without a certification, be able to probably have it implemented or sell to the market if the product is certified from outside? And if there are no such sources here in India where certain kind of certification can be done, but the same certification, not certification, but the efficiency and the performance of the product has been given by clients outside India. I mean, different brands and different companies who are into implementing of this technology outside. given the certification of energy savings or air quality improvement that has been done abroad, would that be good enough for, us or a technology to be implemented in India?
Yeah, I think, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, the best thing is do a pilot. You know, many good products internationally on the air side, I don't know, we go back to the days of a thing called the Cathabar. The Cathabar was very famous in the nylon industry, low temperature, low humidity, certified Cathabar, it was a air moving through a chemical kind of thing, and worked and perfectly done internationally, and then came into India. So they did a pilot, and they had a very good look at the pilot, then went ahead. Other airside products like axial flow fans. Today, there is a lot of work done in axial flow fans in terms of improving efficiency. You can't even put a card between the wheel and the casing, and they are going to well over 90+ efficiency. And the best thing is they talk about the sound power or the sound pressure level being reduced substantially. Now, if it happens in Netherlands, why should it not happen over here? But please, I would definitely say, do a pilot, do a sample, don't do a thing with new products like somebody comes and tells you very good, 30% more efficient, and you say, I place orders for 1,000 units.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I hope that answers your question.
Yes,
See,
sir,
there
thank
are
you.
many products still being used in India which are certified outside India. Okay, for example, Eurovent certified air handling units are there, AMCA certified fans are there, and there are many where the testing facilities, for some of them, the testing facilities are India, but for many of them, the testing facilities are not in India. Even for filtration, many high-level filtration testing facilities are not in India. Okay, so they are tested outside, but they are brought in India and they are used in India. In my opinion, the demand for certification and the recognition of certification is a market push-pull game. Okay, why there would be a demand for certification? Because there is a demand for performance guarantee. Unless there is a demand for performance guarantee, the designers are not likely to recommend use of a certified product. If they are recommending a use of a certified product, definitely there will be a demand and there will be a recognition of third-party certification wherever it is, whether it is India or outside. It's a market push-pull game in my opinion.
Just to add one more point here, that when we are buying or supplying any particular product, we can ask from the buyer that you have to commit. Whatever they are committing, they have to give in the writing. Like we were working in one of the project where customers are asking that what you are committing, that you are Eurovent certified product, and then you are saying you will give us 20% saving from the traditional system. Can you give us in the writing, and that will be linked with your payment schedule? So if we are really confident that, okay, the OPEX will be much better than the cost you are going to have, it works. So all three, I think I agree with all, but if they can guarantee and if it is linked with the payment schedule, or maybe the warranty schedule, or the performance guarantees, then we can believe on that. But certifications can give that guarantee. What we are saying, the third party, not we, the third party is saying, which is global or maybe sometime local. As of now, it is mainly global because we do not have much labs in India and it has to go outside, be it Eurovent, be it AMCA. So I'm not talking to that. But certification gives us the confidence, yes, what they are committing is going to deliver.
One more question. Anybody? Okay, all right. So perhaps I will come back to the panelists and do just a rapid fire round. 30 seconds, we are all tired, we are all waiting to wrap up. So, oh sorry, thanks Marcus. So I'm just saying that 30 seconds to each of the panelists. What are your closing remarks and how do you think we can move this agenda forward in India, because we all are in agreement the third-party certifications will be good for India. So maybe I'll start here, Devraj.
I think and I recommend that we should focus on the quality of the product, and that is necessary when means the customer will believe us, market will believe us when it is certified by independent third party, and that will definitely boost our market, not only in India, but we can also increase the export. So that way, both ways it will work. So I go with that.
Thank you, Devraji. Prabhaji.
So, India's commitment to net zero and starting net zero as soon as possible and building that percentage of buildings so that we reach our net zero commitment is not optional. We have to break the things down into small bits, and we must ensure that we achieve energy efficiency in every single bin, and that is how we will reach that target. Believe me, that target is not easy to achieve. And for that, airside, which forms a substantial part of your building energy, difficult to control, needs certification at multiple levels. Thank you.
Definitely, net zero goal is not easy. I know that, and we know that. So that's thanks for emphasizing and the role that airside will play. Jyotirmay?
My concluding remarks are, we have done enough of design efficiency. Right from ECBC 2007, 15 years, we've been promoting efficiency by design. But my opinion is efficiency by design remains on paper, and it takes a lot of efforts to really translate it in real performance of the building. It's high time we should move all our codes and standards from design efficiency to performance efficiency. If we move there, all other elements are likely to be falling in place.
Well said. It's a very, very, I would say, very noble goal. We will need a lot of effort and a lot of, I would say, cumulative thing to accomplish that, but that would be worth striving for. Thanks, Jyotirmay. Vishal, your 30-second closing remarks.
We keep hearing these days that indoors are more polluted than outdoors. So there is awareness. People want to have clean air. We buy air purifiers. So there is a demand. Yes, certification will help because people will trust it and demand is there. It will automatically get absorbed. And the certification is not just, as Jyotirmay said, not just the component or the product certification, but the performance certification, including the control algorithm.
Thank you. So Devraj talks about the business aspects. I think if you have to hit the performance thing in India, outside from a manufacturing perspective, you need it. Prabhat is talking about the net zero goal. We cannot achieve it unless we actually start to take some real concrete steps towards accomplishing it, and that's the third party. Jyotirmay argument, like if we have to move from design to performance, very big leap, again third party verification. And Vishal, your point that we need to look at the way we are living, and we are spending so much time inside. Indoor air quality is important, and that needs to be looked at in the context of this third party. So all very, very good points. Let's bring our hands together for a round of applause for all our panelists. And with that, I'm going to close this particular panel, and may invite Akash, our MC, to take the stage again.
Thank you. Not much left for me to do except to thank all of you. And may I request Satish to kindly present our token of thanks to our panelists.
Okay, all right. Thank you again, I think, to all of you, and thanks for everyone.
Thank you. To the ones in the audience, please bear with us for the last 5 minutes. Jayanta up for the valedictory for the vote of thanks.